Hello and welcome back everyone to PKIdeas How to Play episode number 9, and today we'll be looking at is castling. Now castling, as we stated in the previous video, is a move which involves both the king and the rook. And we sort of went through the basics where the king moves 2 squares either to his right or to his left, and the rook just jumps over the king and places to the square right next to it. So here castling involves the king on e1 moving to g1 and the rook on h1 moving to f1, and that is what castling is. Now specifically this is kingside castling. As we talked about it before, and I showed you in the last episode as well, when the rook is on the queen side and the king moves 2 squares to the left and the rook jumps over the king and places on the square on d1, then that is named queenside castling. Now, as everything in chess, there are a few rules which involve castling. Now the first rule is that the king cannot have moved from its starting square. So if the king has moved from e1 to e2 and then back to e1 and then decided to castle, then that is not possible. So more differently, if the king has moved to d1 and you try to castle queenside in this instance by moving the king 2 squares and moving the rook over, then that is not allowed as well, simply because the king has moved from his starting square. Now another rule is that the king is not allowed to be in check. So in a position like this with the bishop on g3, the king is neither allowed to castle on the king side nor the queen side, simply because this bishop is checking the king on e1. Now more differently, there is another rule which involves the king. Now, another rule which involves the king is that the king cannot pass a file which has been put under the attacking threat of an enemy piece. So here in this instance, with the queen on f6, the whole f file is under attack. So the king is not able to castle kingside because the f1 square is being attacked. Now this is completely different when it comes to queenside castling, simply because the king doesn't have to travel over the b1 square when you castle queenside in this case. So when the queen is on b6, the queen is attacking the b1 square, but here the king can safely castle because the king is not traveling over the b1 square at all. Now, we talked about the rules that are for the king. Now there is one major rule that is to do with the rook. Similar to the king in terms of it can't castle when the king has moved at all. In chess, the king can't castle when the rook has moved at all. So here in this instance, if the rook from the starting position has moved to g1 and then back to h1 and then the king tries to castle, then that is not possible. Same as in the queen side, when the rook moves to either a2 or any other square and then back to a1 and then tries to castle, then that is not allowed. Okay, so that is pretty much all the basic rules in terms of castling. I'll basically tell you the main reason why people castle. People castle simply because they try to make the king more safe. In a normal chess game, like so, in a normal chess game, usually when you play your pawns out forward, bring your pieces out, your king is in the center, and if you decide to open up in the center and get rid of these pawns, the king is quite susceptible to attack. So people decide to castle on the king side and to make their king more safer and have these phalanx of 3 pawns here guarding the king. So that is the main reason of castling. Castling is mainly done during the opening. It could be done during the middle game. However, there is a major difference between the opening middle game and the end game, simply because the king is a much more active piece in the end game. And so if you liked that video, please leave a like, and if you enjoyed it and you wanted to comment on it, please go down below and comment on the video as well. So please hit the subscribe button and also turn notifications on so that you get notifications every time that I upload a video. So with that being said, thank you, and I'll see you next time.